In this episode of Mythbusters,
It's science!
the build team mines a myth from ancient China as Carrie keeps an ear out for an invading army.
I couldn't hear a thing, but...
And are we being fooled by the 5-second rule?
Oh, I picked it up after like 3 seconds. Would you eat it?
Adam takes precautions in this bacteria bonanza.
No French kissing Adam.
I don't eat my own poo.
Who are the Mythbusters? Adam Savage
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
and Jamie Hyneman.
We're either gonna die or we're gonna fly.
Between them, more than 30 years special effects experience.
That was intense.
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test.
So, what's the myth? What do we got?
This is Chinese invasion alarm, and we got it from a high school science class, which posts on our website.
Apparently, the Chinese had an early warning detection system for approaching armies that involved stretching a leather membrane over the mouth of an 80-liter pottery jar.
Then what they would do is strategically drill holes around the town and lower these drums deep into these shafts.
Men with the best hearing were stationed around these shafts, and they could listen to the vibrations. They could not only tell how far away the armies were, but from which direction they were coming from.
Wow, it's kind of like an ancient rudimentary transducer of some kind.
And it also sounds like something that we're all familiar with in old westerns.
Keeping an ear to the ground perhaps refers to the fact that terra firma transmits sound waves. According to Hollywood, at least, these can be detected by the highly tuned ear.
A French scouting party, like it not.
So what's the plan? How are you guys going to go about testing this?
Well, the details are somewhat sketchy. I mean, we know that they're 80-liter pottery jars, but we have no idea what the dimensions are. We don't know what shape they are.
We know it's pottery, but we don't know what kind of material these things are made of. I mean, it could be stoneware, terracotta, porcelain, so we're gonna have to do some tests to see which resonates sound best.
Grant and Tori kick off the myth with a foray into San Francisco's Chinatown, a treasure trove of Eastern esoterica. They're looking for a selection of pots, which they'll turn into drums for some initial testing. Though, as usual, there's some pointless pottering to go through first. With the gratuitous goat play behind them, they stumble into the pottery section where, spoiled for choice, they take pot luck.
How old are these? Are they like, could they be considered ancient?
This one almost 100 years.
100 years?
Yeah.
This is 100 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's all antique.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a very
Okay.
good one.
Sticker's newer though, but
See?
That's
the
a-
vase itself could be 100 years
Well,
old.
that's a
Yeah.
good start. Now, what are these made out of?
Made by, clay or ceramic.
Ceramic,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a very good one.
Very
This
good.
is the bit where they ask the shop owner if she's heard of the myth.
That they used to use these pots, they would bury them in the ground and cover them with leather skins.
And this is the bit where the shopkeeper says,
No, I didn't hear about that.
Well, do you think
But
it would work?
I have no idea because I haven't tried it before.
can't say fairer than that. Armed with a variety of pots, they head for home.
Taxi!
Back at M5, Grant and Carrie join forces to turn their pots into drums.
Jamming.
The number of drums they've made between them amounts to less than one, so they decide to pool their ignorance.
Apologies to everyone who actually makes their own drums. We have no idea what we're doing.
Meanwhile, Tori's marching to his own beat by building mechanical boots to simulate an advancing army.
I think that's gonna work pretty good. I can feel that. I hope our drums feel it. Sounds like a marching army to me.
Grant and Carrie have slipped into a workmanlike rhythm, and the first drum looks relatively professional. Tori's impressed.
Look at our little drum, Tori. Doesn't this look cool?
Wow, you guys are like regular drum makers. How'd you learn how to make the,
We faked it, just like everything we do.
Everything's running smoothly. The build team is operating like a well-oiled machine. What could possibly go wrong?
I believe you're about to tell us a classic American old wives' tale.
Absolutely. Having kids, I'm really familiar with this. It's the 5-second rule. And the rule is if you drop a piece of food on the floor and retrieve it within 5 seconds, it won't have actually gathered any bacteria or viruses from the floor, and it's okay to eat it. And really, it's almost always, you have to say 5-second rule before you pop that cookie in your mouth.
Or that toast. In an earlier myth, the team was testing whether toast really does drop butter side down.
Yes. You gonna eat those?
A hungry Scotty invoked the 5-second rule.
What's that rule?
That if you drop something on the floor and it's within 5 seconds that you pick it up, you can still eat it.
Some viewers may wish to look away as Scotty eats toast that's been on the sidewalk.
Yes!
Okay, I'm gonna say, well, I guess I won't say that.
So was Scotty safe to snack? Or did she ingest a battalion of bacteria?
Oh, I picked it up after like 3 seconds. Would you eat it?
But I wouldn't eat it just because you've handled it.
To make things easier, we've gotten some contact plates which have a growth medium inside them that can grow either bacteria or fungi, which can produce really harmful toxins. And the first thing we're gonna do is take those and see what the distribution of fungi and bacteria is on your kitchen floor.
Before they drop the food, they need to know the bacteria distribution on Janie's floor. So is M5 as neat and clean as a new pin, or is it a filth-ridden bucket of scum? Adam and Jeremy don't want to contaminate their samples, so they don gloves and masks. In line with the myth, each contact plate will get 5 seconds exposure to different sections of floor.
So I'm gonna grab one of these plates here, and in here we're gonna test in front of the sink and in front of the fridge.
Okay.
The contact plates contain a tryptic soy medium, which may sound like a vegan psychic, but is actually a substance that encourages the growth of bacteria.
You tell me when to go.
Go.
If the floor is contaminated, the contact plates will show it.
4, 5.
Once they've swabbed the kitchen's decks, they head for the Mythbusters mess hall.
Okay, ready.
Then it's downstairs to the shop floor.
You know, now we get to find out definitively just how clean your shop is.
It's a shop. What do you want?
I want to be able to eat off the damn floor. What's my immune system for anyway?
4, 5.
All right. Bathroom.
Over the years, the Mythbusters bathroom has played host to some less than hygienic hijinks. It's housed ducks and skunks and been rubbed down with engine grease.
This place looks a little dingy, Jenny.
Yeah, this may well be the dirtiest part of the shop, huh?
I just want to do one brush for my own personal edification right on the toilet seat, because I've heard a myth that the toilet seat's actually the cleanest place in any given house.
Go. 4, 5.
That's why I love this job. All right, you ready to incubate these guys?
All right.
They'll incubate the plates for 24 hours at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, otherwise known as body temperature.
Shop floor, lunch table, kitchen sink, and my personal favorite, the toilet seat.
Early indications suggest that M5 may be a little workshop of horrors. The build team is testing the myth that ancient Chinese cities used pottery drums to listen out for approaching armies. Tari's been working on a marching machine, while Carrie and Grant have been having a bash at making drums. Everything's been going smoothly, which is a pity, as they learn that they've been barking up the wrong myth.
We just received some new information about this story that's going to radically change the direction that we're going to have to take. And, you know, what happened was the publishers of the textbook that was the source of the original story have sent us their fact-checking sheets.
Their source for this story comes from a book, Mount Zhu, which is about 4th century BC. The shafts were 5 paces apart. They were 15 feet below the base of the city wall. We found out the size of the pottery jars were 40 toe, which is equivalent to 200 liters. I mean, that's a little bigger than we had thought before. The most significant thing of all is the fact that this was to detect the tunneling and mining of a besieging army and not an approaching marching one.
The history of warfare is shot through with examples of military tunnels, as this documentary film from the First World War shows.
Below the ground, the tunnelers are at work on mines under the enemy positions. Listening for their sapping suggests that enemy countermining is close.
Burrowing armies monitored each other's movements by listening out for the sounds of nearby digging.
When this is confirmed, work must be hurried.
Galleries beneath the enemy positions were packed with explosives, then detonated. According to the myth, the ancient Chinese also used military tunnels.
Well, that makes so much more sense. I was trying to wrap my head around why you'd use these embedded drums in shafts to detect an oncoming army when you could use watchtowers and signal fires to do it at the speed of light instead of the speed of sound. That sounds like it makes our experiment a lot easier.
The new research reveals that the myth originated with Mo Tzu, a philosopher who was writing about 400 BC. He described an early warning system designed to protect walled cities against tunneling invaders. It comprised a system of sunken drums, which could pick up vibrations from underground digging. By comparing the intensity of the sound at different locations, sentries could determine the direction of an incoming tunnel and intercept it.
Tori!
The new details have thrown the build team back to square one. These boots were made for walking, not tunneling, and it's down to Carrie to break the news to Tori.
Once again, we're going down the wrong path, but you know, it's better that we caught it in the earlier stages. Otherwise, we've done all this testing for nothing. I'm just a little bummed because I think it looks cool.
Cool, but totally useless. Like these pots, which are too small. To get this myth back on track, Carrie and Tori take another pot shot at another pot shop to find a 200-liter vessel.
Ooh, this one's pretty. Look at that glaze. Oh, I love these. They're so cute. I'm so happy. Look at that.
Tori leaves the browsing to Carrie and gets down to the business at hand.
Okay, what do you got for height?
58 inches.
504. That's
too much. 41 inches.
41. Exactly 200 liters.
I think we found our pot.
It's the perfect size. It's the perfect shape. I think we just go with this one.
Let's go with this one. Help!
They've got their pot, so it's back to M5 to shave a goat. No kidding, really.
You know, my people come from a long line of goat shavers, so I feel it's in my blood.
Apparently, goat skins for the fuller drum only come covered in hair, which presents Carrie with yet another opportunity for growth.
I can't say I'm necessarily looking forward to shaving the goat, but I am looking forward to calling my parents tonight and be like, guess what I did today?
Carrie's never shaved a goat, but she's incredibly well connected, proving that it's not what you know, it's who you know.
We talked to Akbar, the goat shaver, and what he recommended is to first take clippers, then stretch it after it's been soaked for half an hour, and then take one of those little, disposable razors so that you can get the fine stubble.
In the world of goat shaving, Akbar is king. Carrie follows his instructions to the letter with royal results.
Excellent job shaving your goat.
The skin is soaked in water so that it's ready for stretching, then placed over the mouth of the 200-liter pot. With a morning's practice under their belts, Carrie and Grant make light work of stringing the drum. When the skin is taut, they give it one final shave.
Shaving the drum skin.
Get it till you can't do it anymore. Ooh, the tightest tap. I think this is gonna work great. Okay, nobody can touch this until the day of the experiment. We're gonna let it dry in front of a nice warm heater until then. We'll have to put a big sign on it, because...
Do not touch.
According to the 5-second rule, food that has been on the floor for 5 seconds or less will be uncontaminated.
Go.
To test the myth, Adam and Jamie have placed bacteria contact plates on different parts of M5's floor for 5 seconds apiece.
5.
The plates have been incubating for 24 hours at body temperature to see just how much bacteria they've picked up.
Let's scoop them up.
Ooh, they're all kind of yummy, aren't they? Oh man, this stuff is rank.
Yep.
To discover M5's level of hygiene, the guys count the number of bacteria colonies on each sample.
The bathroom number 2 looks like a bloody horror show. I think I dropped it right in someone's drop of wee or something.
Shop floor number 2, 132.
Lunch table number 2,
Yeah.
26 colonies.
Adam's like a kid with a new chemistry set.
I love having bacteriological test stuff.
Come to think of it, Adam is a kid with a new chemistry set.
Later on, I want to lick one of these and get a dog to lick one and see if my mouth is cleaner than a dog's mouth.
How are you going to feel if it turns out your mouth is dirtier than a dog's?
That's fine. It's served me just fine until now. There's no reason to freak out.
Adam's busting to check the results of the toilet seat myth, and it's a eureka moment.
Whoa! There is almost no bacteria on the toilet seat. That is so cool. We have proven a myth. Looking at our samples just briefly from all over Mythbusters, your toilet seat seems to be the most bacteria-free.
Well, you know, that doesn't really surprise me a whole lot because we're testing the floor, you know?
But people don't rub their bare bottoms on your floor all the time. I mean, you know, I'm thinking this is everyone in the company's butt has sat where I put this Petri dish.
If cleanliness is next to godliness, then heaven is on Mythbusters' toilet seat. Toilet humor aside, what did the floor test show?
On all of these figures, there's sometimes a very wide variability between 2 spots we chose that were side by side. I mean, we might not end up testing the 5-second rule here. We might end up testing where you happen to drop the piece of food.
What we need to do is to start with a sterile surface and evenly contaminate it so that we have an even playing field, and that will boil it down to the time, not the actual surface or what's on it.
Right, so yeah, cleanly bacterial inoculated. Right, that sounds great.
In the myth of the 5-second rule, Adam and Jamie have decided to make a uniformly filthy piece of floor. That way, when they drop food on it, they should get consistent contamination.
So I see some pans.
We have some tiles.
Final floor tiles.
We have beef broth. Ooh. And we have some pans.
For some reason, whenever I see these things, I have the desire to smash them on my head. You ready?
Yeah.
See if I can get a perfect face print.
So with that out of the way, what's the plan?
So the plan is that once we get these trimmed down to fit in pans, we're going to pour beef broth.
What's beef broth? Is this beef broth?
They leave the floor tiles to rot in the bibois, and Adam turns his attention to another mini myth.
I've always heard that a dog's mouth is supposedly cleaner than a human's mouth. I'm gonna lick this sterile agar plate, and we're gonna get Lulu the dog to come up and lick the this one, and we'll just see whose mouth is cleaner.
So this has got nothing to do with the 5-second rule. We're just comparing your hygiene to a dog's, right?
Not my hygiene. The human's hygiene in their mouth to a dog's hygiene. I guess empirically what we will be testing is my hygiene against Linda's dog, but...
Just do it. Just lick the darn thing.
All right, here we go. For science.
Ew.
Doesn't taste like anything. Where's the dog? Bring on the dog!
Go ahead.
Want to lick the sterile agar plate? Oh, Lou, that's perfect. Thank you. Good girl.
Is it just me, or does Lulu look quietly confident? Time will tell. Back at the myth of the 5-second rule, the floor tiles are fully festered.
What, 5 days now?
They smell really, really bad.
Yeah, I know. Let's get them out, hang them up, and dry them off, and see if we can use them today.
Jamie punches out plastic templates which will ensure sample sizes are consistent. While they're sterilizing in the microwave, Adam gloves up.
Coming up, Mythbusters takes Microbiology 101.
Adam has to behave like this. It's in his contract. But whatever you do, don't do this at home. To test the 5-second rule, they'll use a wet food, a dry food, and an evenly contaminated floor tile.
So?
It's science!
Samples of wet pastrami and dry crackers are exposed for 2 seconds and 6 seconds. In other words, for less than and more than 5 seconds. They also do a control on samples that don't touch the floor at all, in case they are already coated with bacteria.
Control number 2.
I know I love building big things and blowing stuff up, but this is also super, super fun.
Okay, fishing out a new one.
He doesn't care.
And go.
And the bulk of our Mythbusters bacteriology test is done. Cool. Can't wait to find out what happens.
In the myth of the Chinese invasion alarm, Carrie takes a step back in time to abandoned 19th century gold diggings in the hills beyond San Francisco.
I'm on a reconnaissance mission to find the perfect location for our Chinese invasion alarm myth. This involves 2 very important criteria. One, we have to find a place for a besieging army to make its noise with its, pick and hammer. There's a horizontal drift into this old gold mine that might be a possibility for us. Our second important criteria is that we have to find a spot 30 to 60 feet away from this mine that we can dig a 15-foot shaft and lower our drum into. We're hoping this is going to be a good location because it's just beautiful here.
Frank Jacoby leads Carrie through the dark passageways of the Priest Mine, one of the oldest hard rock mines in California. The walls are etched with history. Like the mythical tunnels of the Chinese invasion alarm, the Priest Mine was dug by hand.
One of the things that is a surprise in here is what you're leaning against. Take a good close look at the walls there. And what do you see on those walls?
Looks like Freddy Krueger was in here.
What those are the miners' tool marks that they used to carve out this tunnel. Those are the chisel and pick marks from 150 plus years ago.
This is as close as they're going to get to an ancient Chinese military tunnel in modern California. Now they have to find a location where they can simulate the sound of an underground army.
And then up here is the air shaft going up to the surface, about 55 feet to the top, to the wooden roof up there.
I mean, this place is beautiful. I'm thinking for our criteria, we need 2 things. We need very specifically a 15-foot shaft that has a floor at the bottom and an open mine.
The Priest Mine perfectly fulfills one criteria. So they resurface to look for a nearby spot where they can sink their early warning hole.
If you look right now, we're line of sight. We're directly right across from the top of the air shaft.
How far do you think that is, like 30 feet?
Well, distance-wise, I would say 30, 40 feet, something like that, yeah.
That's kind of in our range. I think this might be where we need to dig the hole. If we can get a backhoe up here, and we're this close to a mine, I don't think we're going to get anything more ideal.
Okay.
In the myth of the Chinese invasion alarm, the build team has been laying the foundations for a foray into the world of ancient underground warfare.
Ooh, the tightest tap. I think this is going to work great.
They're investigating the myth that ancient Chinese cities had a detection system for tunneling invaders. It's all about seismology. Rocks, as hard as they seem, are elastic and deform when impacted by force, like in an earthquake. Today, scientists can pick up seismic waves from even the smallest underground tremors using geophones. Replace tremors with a tunneling army and the geophones with drums, and you've got yourself a myth. The build team has borrowed some geophones from the U.S. Geological Survey, which they plan to use as controls during their experiment. Meticulous as ever, Grant tests them out in the lot of M5.
Go get him, boy.
He's aided by his very own homemade robot, which comes equipped with a handy pickaxe. The tiny seismic waves are detected by the geophone and displayed on a monitor. Meanwhile, Tori is constructing a metal and ply gantry, which they'll place over their shaft for safety.
Basically, it's going to be like a deck around the hole. It's a steel frame, and then I'm going to cover it with 3/4-inch plywood. That'll give us a nice, stable platform to work on, so none of us, collapse the hole and we all fall in.
The plan's simple. Sink a 15-foot shaft and lower in the drum. 30 feet away, in the Priest Mine's air shaft, they'll swing their pick and see if the vibrations are detectable. They're good to go. Time to load up the Mythbusters mule and head for them there hills. On second thoughts, they dump the mule and the shovels and bring in a digger. Ever heard of taking a hammer to crack a nut?
This is insane.
This is ridiculous.
Looks like they're thinking of digging their way to China to bust this myth.
So, Carrie, that's the mine. That's the opening of the mine shaft. Now, where does the mine end?
That is the ending of the mine right there. There's a shaft that goes straight down, and then it trails back that way.
So
the opening's on the other side of the mountain.
Okay, so there's nothing in between here in the hole.
Not as far as we know, but apparently there's a lot of undiscovered mines that could just be all over this area.
So, like, if we started digging, this whole land could just collapse under us?
Yeah, but there might be gold there.
All right, cool. Let's start digging.
While the build team supervises the city's defenses, Adam and Jamie head below to the mine, which will represent the besieging tunnel.
I don't think I've ever been in a mine before.
Well, then you're just about to have a real neat experience.
Well, Jamie actually used to do silver mining back in the 30s in South America, didn't you?
Well, I noticed this pick he has on his shoulder here. I'm watching out for him. Shall we go on in?
To test the myth, they're looking for 3 locations where their invading army can go to work. They couldn't have hoped for anything more authentic.
You can pretty much match up the same pick you have to what you'll see on the wall here. This was all pretty much dug by hand. It's the same kind of idea.
Wow.
Now imagine doing that 12 hours a day, day in and day out, 7 days a week, no days off. A lot of work.
Good exercise.
You betcha. And let's take a look at another spot that might interest you.
According to the myth, invading Chinese armies used battalions of specialist diggers to tunnel beneath the enemy cities.
If you go to your left there, into the room, you'll see this is our air shaft room here.
Wow.
It's about 55 feet to the top.
After a thorough inspection of the mine, Adam and Jamie are convinced that Carrie struck gold on her reconnaissance mission.
I have never been in a mine before, and it's actually just as cool as I was hoping. It's pretty amazing. In this experiment, Jamie will be representing the besieging army, which I think is an appropriate position for him. He'll be attempting, albeit slowly, to use his pickaxe to get through to our walled city, which is represented by a drum and a hole.
The myth involves stationing men with exceptionally good hearing at these drum heads. And unfortunately, Adam is not one of those people. So we're putting Carrie there with him in case he misses something. Maybe she'll be able to pick it up.
So, if Adam hears anything, then this myth is definitely plausible.
See, I'm actually of 2 minds about this myth. On a practical level, I'm like, no way, we won't hear anything. On a theoretical level, it might be possible. And Lord knows I have been fooled and foiled and confounded by the results of so many myths that we've done that I'm unwilling to state definitively that I think it's total bull or absolutely true. But I hope we get a result. I really do.
Having seen the mine firsthand, the guys take a look at a map to determine exactly where Jamie will launch his assault.
So this is the map that you were talking about?
Yeah, this kind of lays it all out for you.
And what are we, right here?
That's correct. That's the entrance to the Priest Mine.
So that's that little offside room that was one of our sites, right?
That's right.
And that's the shaft where the other site was.
That's right.
So this goes up to the surface right about here.
Uh-huh.
So our hole is probably, our alarm hole is probably right here. I'd say we look at 3 sites. I'd say it's that one, this one, and then this one would be the last site that we'd try if neither of these worked.
Sure. Meanwhile, 50 feet above, the chain gang has never had it so good.
So now I'm excited. I can't believe how easy it was to do all this. Or have somebody else do all this.
Yeah.
Busting ancient myths with modern equipment sits just fine with Tari.
I mean, this has taken maybe like all of an hour to dig this hole. If Carrie, Grant, and I were to try to dig this hole, I don't know, how long would it take? Maybe a week?
In no time at all, the digger's done digging, and the build team checks the depth.
That's 16 feet.
All right, we made
Yay!
it. Nice job.
Awesome. Woo!
So far, so good.
Awesome.
Then Grant spots a possible spanner in the earthworks.
There's a wet spot on the side of the hole, and that could mean that come tomorrow morning when we come back out here, the hole will be filled with water.
The build team wraps up the day by installing Tari's homemade safety gantry.
Whoa.
Hey, watch yourself, Carrie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
almost lost Carrie.
Tomorrow will tell if they have an alarm hole or a bore hole on their hands.
Go.
At the M5 laboratory, Adam and Jamie are testing the 5-second rule on food samples.
Down.
While they wait for their samples to incubate, they check out a related myth.
Let's see the dog's mouth and line up.
Well, that's clear enough.
That looks pretty definitive. That's my mouth. I can see tons of little bacteria colonies growing in exactly the shape of my tongue. And here, where Lulu licked, I see a much smaller concentration.
It's almost like the dog's ones are of a different type. Yeah, there's less of the total amount, but they're more potent.
So no French kissing dogs, I think, is our conclusion here.
Well, I would be more inclined to say no French kissing Adam.
And you know, my mouth is a representative sample. I don't eat my own poo.
Let's take that as read. Nonetheless, if bacteria count is your benchmark, you've gotta smooch the pooch. Bacteria myths are being busted by the bucketful. But how about the big one? The meat and cracker samples are fully incubated and ready to be counted.
So this is supposed to be our definitive test of the 5-second rule. What do you think is actually going to happen?
I don't think there's going to be any significant difference.
I tend to agree with you that there's not going to be a significant difference between 2 seconds and 6 seconds. But shall we start counting?
The results show that all the food did pick up bacteria from the floor tile.
21 for cracker, 2 seconds.
But the wet pastrami picked up more than the dry crackers.
322 for meat, 6 seconds.
On the crucial question of time, the results were less than definitive, with no conclusive distinctions between the 2-second and the 6-second samples.
So does that mean that it's better to eat crackers that have been dropped on the floor than pastrami that's been dropped on the floor?
Well, not exactly, but it does mean that if there is something harmful there on the floor, the odds are the pastrami is more likely to pick it up.
But what about the 5-second rule? Was there a difference between the samples dropped for 2 seconds and the samples dropped for 6 seconds?
Well, I don't think the results were all that conclusive, but as far as I can tell, time didn't seem to be a factor because all the samples seemed to show about the same amount of contamination no matter how long they sat on the floor.
But I'm not ready to put this one to rest just yet. I think we have one more test to do. It's not really about the food and it's not really about the floor, it's about the time. And I'd like to eliminate the food and try applying our contact plates directly to our inoculated floor surface for the correct periods of time, 2 seconds, 6 seconds, and see if there's any difference in how much bacteria they pick up.
I think that makes sense. It's removing all the other variables.
The 5-second rule has been around a long time, and it's not giving up without a fight. By leaving out the food in this final test, they eliminate every variable, except the crucial one, time.
Well, in another 24 hours, we're going to know the answer to the age-old question
of the 5-second rule. Load me up.
24 hours later, it's time to count the colonies. If there's any truth to the 5-second rule, the 2-second plates should have far less bacteria than the 6-second ones.
Whoa.
Wow, that's
Dude,
2-second exposure is huge.
The colony count is so massive as to be uncountable, but it looks identical for both.
There's no discernible difference between the samples, regardless of how long they spent on the floor.
This is really the definitive test for this myth. We could test 1 million different foods and get 1 million different results. But right here, eliminating all other factors purely on time, a 2-second exposure as opposed to a 6-second exposure, there's no difference.
They're almost identical, or they are identical.
Yeah. So that's an excellent result.
The final bell has tolled, and this myth looks out for the count.
5-second rule, what's the verdict?
Well, I think we were both pretty clear on what the results would be, and it took a little while, but we got it. There's absolutely no correlation between how much bacteria food picks up and how much time it has spent on the floor.
In fact, it seemed like it was all about everything else but the time. It was how moist the food was, the surface geometry of the food, what was on the floor and how contaminated it was, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about the time.
We got to figure out a bunch of other cool stuff, like the toilet seat's the cleanest place in your shop.
And that your mouth's dirtier than a dog's. And speaking of which, are you going to let your kids eat off the floor?
Well, I'm raising them off of your life story that you told me. I figure if they eat off the floor until they're 8 or 10, they'll have a super hardy constitution.
Yeah, right. Well, the myth is busted one way or another.
It's totally busted. Bada bing, bada boom.
Morning has broken at the walled city of ancient China.
What? Look out for the tree!
The day is dry and clear, but what about the alarm hole? The build team is praying that it hasn't turned into a pond overnight.
Moment of truth, I'm nervous.
Not bad. Not bad at all. I see. I mean, there is some mud on this side.
So,
That side's gross.
Yeah, this is.
You know what?
This is good. I think this is gonna be perfect.
Phew. I didn't sleep so good last night.
Conditions couldn't be better. A couple of hours in the sun will make sure the homemade drum is nice and tight, increasing the chances that it'll pick up the sounds of the burrowing army beneath.
Okay, I just gotta test out the geophone real quick.
The USGS geophone will provide them with a control to monitor the performance of the ancient alarm.
Okay, rock and roll. So what I'm doing with the geophone is it goes into this fire pod, which is a microphone preamplifier with a FireWire interface. And that's gonna allow me to both monitor the signal coming through this spike and also record it onto my laptop so that we can play it back later on.
Before they lower the drum, Grant wants to test the geophone to make sure that it can detect the tunneling army.
Okay, and contact. Now, if only it lets go.
You go really close. Oh. Yeah, you got it. You got it, you got it.
It's just like fishing.
All right.
Okay.
So this is our control test, just to see if we can actually pick up Jamie's hammering from the hole with this sensitive equipment, and then we'll see if our drum can actually do the same.
Exactly. And ready. I got something very faint. I think I might be able to pick it out. Carrie, did you hear anything?
I can't hear anything with my naked ear.
The experiment setup is spot on. Jamie's digging is out of earshot, but the geophone can detect faint tremors through the earth. Now they'll see if the drum can pick up the vibrations with enough resonance to be heard by the human ear.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
The ancient amplifier is lowered slowly into its earthy socket.
Okay. Yeah, let's aim it.
Positioning the 200-liter drum is a job for the whole band.
There's one more rope on that one that's slack on this side.
There's something resting on the back of my
That's
neck.
it.
It's all right, it's just a screw sticking out of it right here.
Now it's square. There you go.
Beauty.
Well, we've located several spots that we want to go to. They're strategically placed at various points along the shaft to give us a variety of potential hits.
You know, I know that we said before we should try the worst case scenario first, but I'm starting to think that for communication purposes and proof of concept, we should try the closest one, because there's definitely no noise pollution from you hammering at the bottom of the shaft over there.
Okay.
Over to here. So why don't you do that one first, because that's the easiest one for us to place someone over there that can hear you hammering, Grant can hear you, we can see if it works. And if it does, then we can move farther away.
I'm going to do it sort of rhythmically so you know what to expect. And it'll be like, you know, hit, pause, and that, and like, you know, tick, tock, that kind of a speed. All right?
Good.
So, for the first time in more than half a century, this mine will ring to the sound of a swinging pick. But will the talking drum warn Adam and Carrie that invaders are on their way?
So, Jamie, if we find gold, are you going to share it with me?
50 feet away, Jamie and Tori are going to play the part of the tunneling Chinese army.
In the same area. And 1.
They swing quickly into rhythm, aiming hefty blows at the hard rock.
4,
5,
6.
The mine shaft is mic'd, so Grant can clearly hear the pick's percussion. He'll keep an eye on Adam and Carrie, who will signal if they hear a drum beat. According to the myth, citizens with extraordinary hearing were selected to man these listening posts, begging the question why deaf as a post Adam is on the job.
10.
11.
Adam's in an auditory black hole, but Carrie seems to be picking up something.
18.
19.
20.
That's 20. Stand by for playback.
The geophone did record the sound, but only just.
So faint.
So how about the drum?
It sounded like a really low hum, and then every time you hit it would go, as if somebody has just barely going down on the drum.
I can't believe that it worked. That's incredible.
I can't believe it either. I'm amazed. Totally amazed.
It's quite a result. There seems no doubt that Carrie really was hearing the blows as they happened.
I believe that the noise was definitely coming up the shaft. I believe the shaft was giving me a little bit of an echo. There was a lot of ambient noise around above me, birds and shuffling, but it was very, very different. I didn't hear it from this ear, I only heard it from this ear. So I firmly believe that the sound was coming from the drum, and it wasn't as much of a tap as it was a little beat. We brought out all of this fancy instrumentation. I mean, look at Grant. He's completely wired up. Earphones, geophones, all that, microphones. The Chinese invasion alarms seem to work better. This is the most exciting part about this job, is when you walk in with all of these preconceived notions of failure, like, that's not gonna work. No, there's no way. I don't think one of us thought this was definitely gonna work. And then it does.
Okay, here is position number 2.
All right, maybe I can finally hear it.
We're in a new location. We're underneath the drum. Jamie's gonna strike the wall 20 times. You ready, Jamie?
Okay.
Everybody ready?
We are ready.
Adam's hoping that the hearing trumpet will help overcome his limitations in the listening department.
Striking!
But past experience on Mythbusters suggests it may not be big enough.
What step you see, Sonny? I can't quite hear you.
1, 2, 3.
Grant listens into the tunnel mic and counts off each blow of the pickaxe.
8, 9, 10. 16, 17, 18.
Okay, that's 20.
Did you hear anything? No, I don't think I did either.
We won't know until we go up there whether it made any difference. I'm not hearing quite so much reverberation here.
Did you guys hear anything?
Not that time.
Now, there were a couple times when there was something that might have been it, but really, I started looking at your hands when you were counting off the hits, and I wasn't hearing anything.
No, I'm saying absolutely not.
All right, I didn't get much on the geophone either.
So the invasion alarm seems to have a blind spot, or rather, deaf spot, directly below it. For test number 3, Jamie and Tari moved to a new location 50 feet deep and over 100 feet away.
Okay, I can hear them. The mic's set. So this is position 3, chapel dugout. Ready?
We're ready.
And 1.
Busting this myth can be back-breaking work.
9, 10,
11, 12. 16, 17.
Okay, that's 20.
Nothing. I think at that rate, we'll be inside the city walls in 2 months.
I was watching your finger.
Yeah, nothing. I didn't hear anything on that one.
I was watching her finger.
I did.
You did?
She did.
The only time I couldn't hear it was when your jacket shuffled a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had my thumb like this, and every time I heard it, I went.
Yeah.
And you were nailing it?
Oh yeah, she was nailing it. I was watching her.
I heard it.
Wow.
That's far.
That's farther than test number 2 by actually a not insignificant distance. I can't believe we heard it. I mean, that's amazing.
No army's gonna tunnel 100 feet down before they start coming towards the city wall. So I'm thinking this scenario is a lot more likely that they'd just be that far out, but that's really far to hear it.
Nice experiment, nice design, good rig. I'm just blown away.
It's been a long day at the coalface, and the besieging army resurfaces to learn its fate.
Well,
what'd you guys find?
Woohoo!
We totally heard it.
Are you serious?
Absolutely. It worked from there, and it worked from position 1, and it worked from position 3. It did not work from position 2.
Second location was a softer strata on the number 1 and the number 3. We had good hard quartz and we could get a good throw at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one I was hitting the roof with soft stuff.
When you were hitting the quartz on that first test, Carrie heard it crystal clear.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I thought this thing wouldn't pick up anything.
I couldn't hear a goddamn thing, but Carrie's up here with the cone, and Grant is counting off the hits, and Carrie's not looking at him, and she's matching him perfectly hit for hit.
Oh, it was beautiful.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Now the crazy thing is, we couldn't necessarily detect it on all of the equipment when we first did it.
That this was
so the drum
more
axle
sensitive than the equipment that we brought.
I got a little bit on the geophone, but you know, the really expensive audio frequency mic didn't get anything.
Well, in a strange way, it makes sense because it's such a large surface area. So a small instrument, however sophisticated, might not work quite as well as just a great big diaphragm that is there receiving the sound waves.
Well, are you guys ready to fill in a hole?
Oh man, I've been waiting for that all day.
This should take us about.
Jamie and I are going to see you back at the shop, but you guys have a good time.
Really? I'm surprised by
Shocking.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I can't believe that worked.
So what do we think? Is it busted, plausible, or confirmed?
Well, we know that it was written about in an ancient Chinese text, but we couldn't find any evidence physically that it ever existed.
Yeah, but it is a fairly complex and esoteric system to write about if it wasn't used at some point successfully.
So what do we call this, plausible?
I'd say that meets the definition of plausible.
Absolutely plausible.
Agreed.
Amazing.